All right, guys. This is a real interesting hand that I wanted to cover. I did get a microphone, but I'm having issues with it, so hopefully I'll get that working eventually. I'll sound a little better. This is a hand where it really is player dependent, and the more you dig into it, the more you realize how interesting of a hand this is. And it really comes down to what he thinks of me as a good player, what I think of him as a good player, and does he bluff in this spot? Would most people bluff in this spot? So this whole thing is very player dependent. And I'll go ahead and play this, and then I'll kind of
Certainly
cover
sucking
what
the
I'm talking
life
about here.
out of Los
Real interesting
Angeles.
hand. The more I started thinking about it, the more I realized it was really
And here we
that
go,
type of hand
Raul.
more than anything.
Back on the saddle, 8-7 suited. Stanley Tang. King Queen suited. I would have expected a squeeze play out of Stanley. Nonetheless, we move forward. 5 ways to the flop. Spades. And look at this. Keating and Rahul on a collision course. Open-ended straight draw plus flush draw for Keating. Rahul pair plus flush draw. And this could escalate quickly.
Interesting. Keating just calls.
Call.
And that plays into things a little bit later on.
Thinks he wants a spade. Ace. I would probably like to see Rahul barrel again with this combo.
And I kind of
Gonna put some heat.
kind of like this. You can get a jack to fold. You got a shit ton
on
of equity
Keating,
with a
but
pair and
Keating
flush draw.
probably going nowhere. A little too much.
It's hard to
hand.
put Keating on a set or a
He's
straight flush
facing a
draw.
big bet. That's pot. Praying for a spade. But that's not what he wants. Praying for a 7. But that's also not what he wants. Praying for a fold. That's certainly not coming. Call. 437,000 off to a river. Big river inbound magic. Oh, and it's a 7. Keating checks. Rahul has to believe he has the best hand here. And Keating rivers the nut. Look at Keating staring down Rahul. What a river card. The 7 of hearts. Rahul grabbing chips. $200,000. And here we go.
All in. Players, all in.
Nasty spot for Rahul. Facing an all-in rip.
All right, now Raul takes a little bit of time with this. So while he's deciding, I'm going to turn around and talk about this a little bit. If I'm both people's perspective, mainly Raul's at first, and I'm thinking, okay, would I bet 2 pair on the river? Yeah, because Keating could have something like ace X of spades. He could be checking ace jack, although you thought maybe he probably would have check raised the turn, but not necessarily. So you want to get value from your 2 pair. So I think the bet is okay. My initial thought was, boy, did he bet too much? But I looked back at it and I saw that he bet a little under half pot, which is something you have to always consider when you're betting. When you're betting, you want to make sure worse is calling you. So you don't want only better to call you. So you don't bomb the river full pot. That would be a terrible bet because you're only getting looked up by straights and 2 pairs and sets and etc. But what do you want to get? You have to ask yourself, what do you want to get looked up by when you're betting here with 8-7? You want to get looked up by an ace or a jack, one pair, right? And if he bets small enough, under half pot, can he get looked up by an ace or a jack? Sure. So I like it. So okay, so what can he have here? He might just call the turn. Now, what else could he have? Queen 10 of spades. That's a hand that could be a bluff where he would actually check raise the turn. But this gets down to the point where what kind of player is he? What kind of player am I? If you're at your local 2-5 casino and I'm a schlub and I just walk in there and Alan Keating doesn't know me, and let's just say for hypothetical reasons, we're just playing a 2-5 game, and he turns around and looks over at me. Is he check raising the river with a bluff when I could have ace jack and aces myself being the pre-flop raiser, expecting me to fold that? He might not do that because he thinks I'm a schlub, just a local 1-3 person, never met before. So maybe I don't, maybe that would be not a smart bluff by him. He wouldn't pull a bluff like that. Now, if Keating was your regular average 2-5 player, and I thought he was a regular 2-5 player, let's say he thought I was, and I thought he was, just a couple schlubs and playing the 1-3 no limit in their local casino, I'd be real suspicious of a check raise because, for example, if Keating had missed, well, first let me back up. Let's say he made the straight, right? He would not check that to check raise me, expecting me to bet thin. People don't bet thin if they're schlubs. They check back ace jack. They check back an ace. They check back a ton of hands because they're afraid of the straight that came in. So they're just going to check back. So everyone knows when you're out of position, hey, this guy's a schlub. I am going to bet for value because he's just going to check it back. So the fact that he check raises would make me really scratch my head and say, okay, he's a schlub. He must be, I don't know, is he bluffing? But then you would, on the other hand, you'd think, well, if he is check raising, he can't be bluffing, right? It's really confusing. Now, if let's say Alan Keating thinks I'm a pro, then he'll turn around and look at me and say, okay, I can check raise this because I do expect him to bet a set of aces. I do expect him to bet ace jack. He bet full pot on the turn, so I can check this. I do expect him to bet a set or two pair, and I can check raise all in, and that's okay. And he'll wonder if it's a bluff or not. And being the fact that it's Alan Keating and the guy is getting 2-1, it's going to be awfully hard for him to fold. So Keating knows he's a pro, so he can do this. If Keating thinks he's a schlub, he wouldn't do this. He shouldn't do this. Unless he's a schlub. And then you go back and forth and kind of ask yourself, okay, if I'm looking at him as a pro and he knows I'm a pro, let's say, he could check raise and it would be a real tough spot for Alan Keating because it could be both. It could be a bluff or it could be for value. It could be 9-10. The value is 9-10 of spades, obviously. 9-10 off is hard to believe because he just check called the turn. And the fact of the matter is that turn bet was a full pot size bet on the turn. So you can't believe that Keating is going to call 9-10 off when it's easy that Rule here can have ace-x of spades. So you wouldn't think that there's no way Queen 10 off can 9-10 off could be in his range really. Queen 10, same thing. It's a double gutter, by the way. 9 or king. No, it isn't a double gutter, is it? Well, you could have a hand though, like my bad. You could have a hand like Queen 10 of spades, where you picked up that would be a double gutter, or 9 would come in, or a king. Yeah, my bad. That's what I was thinking. So Queen 10 of spades, double gutter and a flush draw. That makes sense. You could have Queen 10 off. I don't know if he would have queen 10 off for the same reason I just talked about. So he probably doesn't have queen 10 off. The more I go through this, it's crazy. If we're both pros, you have to put him on 9 10 of spades. And it's ridiculous because it's one freaking combo, right? But the more you think about it, you're like, well, on the turn, he's not calling with a double gutter or an open ender. Of course, it is Alan Keating. Queen 10 of spades is the only thing I'm thinking of. Okay, you can have queen 10 of spades, and he turned it into a bluff, or he can have 9 10 of spades, and he's there. So it's a coin flip. Those are really the only two hands he could have. Queen 10 of spades or 9 10 of spades. And that's Alan Keating, and who knows if he comes up with something weird, he turns into a bluff, and you're getting 2-1. So then I think it's a call. But it is really crazy because if you know, like I said, it's really interesting. If it's pro against pro, then it's a coin flip. It's one of those two hands. And let me know in the comments if you think it's anything else, but that's exactly what I think it is. And throw in the Keating factor, getting 2-1 on top of it. If you're not getting as good a price, you could probably think it's a different situation. You'd probably fold easier. It is $800,000, of course, too. That might play part of this. It's a lot of money. But I think with Keating, it's probably a call. It's a coin flip. It's one of those two hands. But really interesting. And then it points out the fact that if we're at your local 1-2 card room, if I'm in my local card room and the guy check raises me, I'm very tempted to call because he can't expect me to value bet thin, and he can't expect me, probably, depending on what he thinks of me, expect me to fold like a set of aces or ace jack, which I could have. Again, that depends on what he thinks of me as well. So there you go. I thought this was really interesting. Hope you liked it too. And feel free to make comments. Good stuff. Really got me thinking, just this one hand.